In the portion of Shlach, we speak about the sin of the spies. 10 spies came back from Israel with an evil report, stating that it's a land that consumes its inhabitants, and there's no way that the Jewish people will be able to conquer the land of Israel. And the Gemara goes on to say, in the tractate of Sotah 35a, that the spies said, Kaviyachal afilu balabayis eini yachal lahitzi kelev misham, that even God himself, who is the balabas, which means the owner of the house of Israel, of the world, he cannot take out his own vessels from there. And then God gets very angry at the Jewish people, because the Jews begin to believe these 10 spies. Instead of listening to the 2 positive spies, Yeshua and Kalev, the Jews listen to the 10 evil spies. So God tells Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm going to destroy all the Jewish people. Moses begins to pray and says, God, don't do that. On the contrary, Ve'ata yigdel na koyach adnai kasher dibarta lemer. On the contrary, he says, please, Almighty God, let's enlarge the power of the name of Adonai, as you have spoken. So the question comes to mind, why does Moshe Rabbeinu invoke the name of Adonai, which is God being the master of the universe? If Moses wants to transform this judgment into kindness and mercy, he should have said the name of Havaya, the Tetragrammaton, which is the name of God's kindness, the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. And yet the Torah specifically says Moses requested Yigdal no Koyach Adonai, that God should enlarge in the strength of the name of Adonai. And if this is a good prayer, why did Moshe Rabbeinu not use it after the sin of the golden calf, when God also wanted to destroy the Jewish people? Why only here? And furthermore, we find that in the word Yigdal, which means to enlarge, we find a letter Yud that is large, a big letter Yud. Why is the Yud of the name Yigdal enlarged here in this passage? So let's understand for a moment, what was the sin of the spies? What was their intention? What was their mistake? And how does Moshe Rabbeinu now correct it with this prayer? These 12 spies that Moshe Rabbeinu chose, 2 of them, Yeshua ben Nun, who was going to be the new leader of the Jewish people, and Kalev ben Yefuneh, who was a God-fearing individual and kept to the mission. Besides these 2, the other 10 were also great leaders and great figures. So why is it they came back with an evil report, a negative report, saying we cannot consume the land of Israel, we cannot conquer it, it's a land that consumes its inhabitants? And the answer is that because they were godly people and they were holy people, they wanted to dedicate their life to the study of Torah. They said, look, the Jewish people were enslaved for 210 years. We just received the Torah from God. It's an unbelievable masterpiece. It's priceless. There is no wisdom in the entire world like this. We left Egypt just over a year ago. We have not begun to really sink our teeth into the Torah. Let's study the Torah. Furthermore, in the desert, we have no problems. We don't have to worry about making a living. We have the clouds of glory that protect us from our enemies. These clouds of glory are like a built-in air conditioning system. Even though it was hot during the day in the desert, it made it very comfortable. The clouds of glory washed out their clothing every night when they went to sleep. And they took off the clothing, the next morning they woke up, it was fresh. It was folded, and if they gained a few pounds, so now there was more room around the waist. If they got a little taller, the hem was opened up and let out. So there was plenty of room for them to grow and to prosper. The manna came from heaven every day. They had food. and they didn't have to go and buy food or work for food. In addition to that, they had the water from the Be'er of Miriam, from the well of Miriam. There was no taxes on water. So it was very easy to live. So now, God is providing them with everything. All they had to do is sit and study Torah. They should give all this up and go into the land of Israel, where they have to work. And it says, 6 days a week shall you work, and on the 7th day you shall rest. And for 6 years you will toil, and the 7th year you shall allow the land to lay fallow. They said, what do we need this for? Let's stay here in the desert and study Torah. Furthermore, what does it mean they said that we cannot conquer the land of Israel? Did they truly believe that God did not have the power to conquer the land of Israel? They just witnessed the 10 plagues that God brought upon Pharaoh and his great empire. They saw the splitting of the Red Sea. They saw the man coming down from heaven. They saw the miracles of God. They saw God's revelation on Sinai. Do you think they were so foolish to believe that God could not conquer the land of Israel? And it's true that in the land of Israel, there were 31 kings that had their summer homes, and there were 7 major nations that lived there. But still in all, God is infinite. God took down the most mightiest empire in that generation. Surely he could knock out and wipe out the 31 kings of Israel. So what were they thinking? And Chassidus explains that they made a dichotomy. And they separated 2 names of God. They said that there's a level of God which is Havaya, the level of God which is beyond nature, which is the level of God in the world of miracles, God as the infinite being. And then there's the level of God of Adonai. Adonai means the master of the universe, the creator of nature. And these 2 worlds are separate worlds. They don't mix. You are either in the realm of miracle or you are in the realm of nature. So came along these 10 spies and they said, look, as long as we are in the desert, we are living in a realm of nature, of miracle, then we have the ability to study Torah and God will provide all of our needs. But once we enter into the land of Israel, we are now changing this reality. We are going from one zone into another zone. We're going from the zone of miracle into the zone of nature. And once we enter into the zone of nature, we are now living according to the laws of nature. And according to the laws of nature, the Jewish people who were slaves for all these years cannot conquer 31 kings. And even God can't change that, because God created the nature and is not going to change his own rules. And that is the meaning of the Talmud, that even Balabayis Eini Yochel Lohitzi Kelev Misham, that even God can't take his own vessels out of there. It's God's vessels. They are nature. That's God's tools of creation. But God can't change his own laws. Those are the laws that God established. Now that was the mistake of the spies. That they thought that these 2 worlds are separate. There was a dichotomy between Havaya, the God beyond nature, and Adonai, the God of nature. And so they insulted the name of Adonai. They insulted the name of God that creates the nature. And the Rebbe goes on to say that the reason for this insult and this sin of lack of faith in God, that God has no control in the world of nature, he allows nature to rule nature, that sin was rooted in a much deeper place. It was rooted in a place of a lack of faith for a fellow Jew. That the spies did not have faith in their brothers and sisters. They did not recognize the power of the godly soul. And they said like this: when can the Jews prosper? When can the Jews live in a realm of miracle? when they are in the desert. Or similarly, when they enter into a synagogue, when they enter into a yeshiva, when they are in the realm of spirituality, then perhaps they will have this zone or this reality of miracle. But once the Jews enter into the land of Israel, which is the world of nature, and they have to begin to plow the land and sow the land and harvest the land, now they will be like all the other nations of the world. So they lost trust in their fellow Jew, not recognizing the power of the neshama, the godly soul, which is part of God himself, which has the ability to cross over even within the realm of nature and be beyond nature. That the Jew can survive in the everyday world and can prosper, and yet the Jew can transcend nature. That's not a contradiction. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu prays, V'ato yigdal no koyach Adonai. We have to now enlarge the power of the name of Adonai to show the world that even the name of Adonai, which is the power of nature, that too has the ability to transcend nature. And this explains why the letter Yud in Adonai is large. What is the Yud? The Yud represents Ayid, a Jew. Till now the spies saw or thought that the Jew was small. That once the Jew enters into the large world, he is the smallest of all the nations and therefore has no power to conquer the nations of the world. He has no power to conquer the challenges and the temptations of nature. So Moses says, Yigdal, make the Yud large. Show the entire world that the soul of a Jew is part of God himself. And therefore, even though we have challenges in nature, we have the ability to tap into our soul, to tap into the power that is beyond nature, and therefore transcend nature itself. And the Yud also alludes to God himself, because the Tetragrammaton, the Yud, Kei, Vav, Kei, also begins with a Yud. And the name Adonai ends with the Yud, which was why we find in many Sidurim and many Chumashim that when they want to say God's name, it has two-letter Yuds. Why these two Yuds next to each other? So it's explained that the two Yuds are a combination of these two names of God. The first Yud of the Tetragrammaton, that's beyond nature, and the final Yud of the name Adonai, which is the God of nature. That these two worlds, these two names, have the ability to synthesize and to become one. That even while we are in nature, God has the ability to change his own laws and go beyond nature. So this is the message of the portion of Shlach. That God did not desire that the Jews should remain in the desert, but on the contrary, to go into the everyday world and do physical mitzvahs, to do physical deeds. And by the fact that we do the physical deeds, we are able to elevate the world around us, and we are able to reveal godliness in nature, and by doing so, bring about the ultimate geula, the ultimate redemption with the coming of Mashiach.
Amen.